Well, hi folks, and welcome to the next video in the Mysteries of the Cathar Country series. And with this video, we're going to start off a new playlist. And it's about the Cathars, so it's going to be the Cathars and the Albigensian Crusade. And this first video, we're going to look into the history of the Cathars and the basic beliefs of the Cathar Church. So please do click on subscribe, and in the description below you'll find a list of books that you can collect. I'll build this up over time. And also click on, if you want to make a donation, click on my PayPal account and you can make a one-off or a monthly donation. So where did the Cathars come from? What were their beliefs? What was their belief system? And what was the line that brought them to the Languedoc, which is basically where the area we're looking at, the Cathar Country in the Languedoc? Well, it all started out with the age-old question of good versus evil. The question of, if God created the world, and God is all perfect, he's all good, he's omnipresent, why is there God created the world, why is there so much evil in the world? This is the question that mankind has been asking itself down through the millennia. And if God created man in his own image, then is there evil in God? Now, this is something that people have struggled with. Now, going back to 600 BC, the Zoroastrians spoke of the world as being a battleground of good and evil. And you know, I think you can see that today, can't you? Just by looking on the news. And the Buddha in 500 BC spoke of leaving the material world to find the world of Nirvana, the world of spirit. So when did it come into Christianity, this whole idea, this whole question? Well, we're going back really pretty much to the beginning of Christianity, because in 144 BC, Marcion, who was a wealthy Roman shipbuilder, he asked this question and he started the first Gnostic dualistic church. So the answer he came up with was that the world of matter can't have been created by the God of God, so it must have been created by the devil or the demiurge. So basically, the God of the Old Testament, who's seen as a God of retribution, was the God who created the world. And into this world, the God of God sent Christ to bring good into the world and to try and turn the situation round. So because of this, there's a need on this plane to be pure, to live a life of continency, and to try as much as you can to separate yourself totally from matter, as much as you can, whilst being still on this plane. And he had two types of levels, which you'll see is a thing which has continued right down the generations. He had the believers, which were known as the pistis, and he had the initiates, which were known as the Gnostics. And these would be the perfects of Catharism later on down the line. And then in the 3rd century BC, we had Mani. Now, he lived from 216 to 274 AD. He was from West Asia, and he considered himself an apostle of Christ. Now, this started a massive following under the name of Manichaeism, and they believed the same things as the early dualists under the Marcion Church. And they also believed that all great leaders that had come to the earth had been sent by the God of God for the same reason that they sent Christ. And then in the 5th century AD, we're looking over here in Armenia in the east, and this is where the Palaeolithic sect gathered strength. And then this Palaeolithic sect can be seen as a direct line to Catharism. Now this was the time of Constantine V, and he decided to move a whole lot of people from the area of Armenia, where there was insurrection, right over to Europe, and actually to the area of Bulgaria. And they were supposed to protect the lines of his empire. And then later on, much later on, in 975, there was a massive movement from Armenia over to Bulgaria. Now, the Bulgarians had just very, very recently been Christianized, and the Slav peasants there weren't very keen on the Bulgar and Greek overlords. So when the new religion of dualism arrived, they were very, very happy to take this on board, and this is how it grew through the peasant Slavs in Bulgaria. So the church in Bulgaria grew massively, and basically it came down to a priest of the area called Bogomil, and he started the first really large dualistic church in the time of Tsar Peter, which is 927 to 969. One problem they had is they were trying to find. Now they decided that there was two gods. They had to decide whether the god of evil originally came from the god of good. In that case, there would only be one god. But they decided it could have been the fallen angel from God who ended up creating the world. But the other side was that no, there are actually two gods, and that was the side that majority of the Bogomils decided was the truth. So the Bogomil church now grew massively throughout Bulgaria, and it started going over into other countries and other areas. And by the 11th century, it was massive in Northern Europe and in the lowlands. And then in the 12th century, it had moved over, in the early 12th century that is, to Champagne, to Flanders, to the Loire Valley, and Rhineland. Now, it was about this time that the Cathars took on the name of Cathar, which basically in Greek meant purified ones. So the perfects were the purified ones. They basically followed the Silk route as well, and this is how the Cathars got the reputation of being weavers. Anyway, the Catholics again weren't very happy, and a revolt. These are the Cathars, the Catholics of the area, began a revolt. And in 1163, there was many burnings and lynchings in Cologne, and also in neighbouring Sasse-Loin in 1120, in Cologne again in 1144, and in Vézelay in 1167. Now, this was not the Catholic Church that was doing this. This was actually the locals who decided that they didn't want the influence of the Bogomil Church in their area. So because of this, the Cathars decided they had to find safer areas to live in. Some of them actually came across to Western England, where they were duly branded and driven naked through the snow. So not a great move for them there. But we've talked before about a connection between the Champagne area, because of the Knights Templar, and the Languedoc in the south of France. And this is why the Cathars, or the Bogomils, moved down to the Cathar area and became the Cathar Church. They also moved to Lombardy in the north of Italy as well, and a big church maintained its presence up there for many, many years. So in the Languedoc, we'll move now down to concentrate on the Languedoc and the beliefs of the church and how things developed there. Now, basically, the Languedoc was known as a very tolerant area, and Jewish settlements were growing in the area. People were basically allowed to be free with their own religion. So it started off with sort of ragtag bands that moved into the area. They were preaching, but they're very anti-clerical, very militant, and churches were getting destroyed, etc. And there was one particular guy called Henry, and in 1135 he was arrested by the Bishop of Arles. And after this, he was put in the presence of Bernard of Clairvaux, our friend again, who we've we've been through on previous videos. Now, Bernard he offered him actually a position as a monk in Clairvaux Abbey, back in the northern, well, back where they came from, near Champagne. And it said that he did agree, but then changed his mind and went back on the street and carried on his Cathar preachings. And then in 1145, a preaching mission was launched, and this was with Bernard of Clairvaux, it was with the Bishop of Chartres, and Alaric, the Cardinal of Ostia. Now, they moved into the Languedoc area. The idea was to go from town to town and preach, which they did. But they got very much mixed reception, which shows on the ground that some people were agreeing with the Cathar Church, and some people weren't. When they went into Toulouse, they were absolutely jeered, and when they went into Albi, they were cheered. So they didn't really know what reception they were going to get. But they did their teaching mission, which didn't really take to much. Because at the time, many of the Cathars were moving into the circulade towns at the top on the hilltops around the Languedoc, of which there are many, many, many. The circulade towns are like fortified circular, small towns. So you could block entrance of any area, of any circle of the town, to stop invaders getting through, because they'd get through one bit and then they would have to go to one side and the next bit would be blocked. But that's a different story. Anyway, at this time, the nobles began protecting the Cathars because they were relatives and they were their people. And also, the nobility of the area started to take on the Cathar beliefs as well, and they're all for themselves. In 1165, the Catholic and Cathar discussions continued. There was 5 abbots went to the town of Lombers, and 7 abbots. And they met with just one Cathar representative by the name of Oliver. Oliver denied the Old Testament and said basically that the God of the Old Testament was the evil God that created the world. He disapproved of infant baptism, because the whole idea is, how can you be baptized without the knowledge of God when you're a child? He said the swearing of oaths and sacraments of the church were all evil. He said that the Catholic priests were false prophets. So, of course, he was duly found guilty of heresy. Also at this event, there was a person called Peter of Garcia, and he was recorded as saying, God is perfect, nothing in the world is perfect, therefore nothing in the world could be made by God. But if God could not have created matter, it was equally clear that the devil could not have created the soul. So we have a good God who created the invisible world, and we have an evil God who created the invisible world. Therefore, he was found to be guilty of denying monotheism, because obviously Christianity was supposed to be a monotheistic religion. He also stated that Jesus could not be matter if he was the incarnation of the good God. So Christ's humanity, therefore, is an illusion. So neither the death of Christ nor the resurrection of Christ ever occurred. So you can see how this the two sides of Christianity here could never really meet. They were so far apart. Anyway, at this point, the Cathar Church grew massively, and it became established in the country. There were bishops, Cathar bishops, that were introduced, and they would cover various areas of the Languedoc, and they would be called the Filius Minor and the Filius Major, with the major being the major bishop and the minor being the trainee. So then the Cathar Church itself was split up into believers, perfects, and just sympathisers. And sympathisers would just be the people of the population who would bring offerings for the perfects. So the perfects themselves, they were the initiates, they were the bon Christians, and they would have to be initiated through a process known as a constellamentum. Now this was after they were put with an existing perfect for a year, and if they got through that year, then they were judged either to be ready to go into the consolamentum to become a perfect, or to be given more time, or to basically be told this life isn't for you. So the initiation would begin by bringing the prospective perfect into a room which was made very, very bright, and also had fellow Cathars to witness the ceremony. You were made to stand before the senior perfect and two of his assistants. Then you had to recite a long homily followed by the Lord's Prayer. You had to renounce the cross and infant baptism. You had to accept the baptism of the Holy Spirit yourself, and you had to deny all luxuries. You had to say you would eat no meat or milk or eggs. And if you were to travel around the area, you could only travel with friends of the faith, the Cathar faith. Then you were led prostrate before the chief perfect, and he would put the Gospel of John on your head, and then the surrounding crowd would lay their hands on the book of the Gospel of John and pray for the Holy Spirit to enter the new perfect. You were then dressed in a garb. Basically, it was a garb of your own area clan, but that had to stop when people were starting to get persecuted, because it stood out too much. But then they took to black robes with a leather belt, but they also had the New Testament tied to the belt by another leather thong. Now the perfects then lived in little communities with fellow perfects. There was the female house and the male house, but you would live together and as fellow perfects. Now the general believers, which was the step below the perfects, they would have to do what was known as the conventia, which is a type of living, and that was a prompt and they would promise at this point to take the consolamentum before they died, even if it was on their deathbed, and they would visit the houses of the perfects for teaching at various times and to take offerings. And they had a sermon once a month, but apart from that, they could live pretty much as they liked. So we're looking here at dualism, aren't we? Now, as we're going through the beliefs of the Cathars, I think it's good to look at dualistic thought as well as dualism, because this gives you an idea of Gnosticism, as opposed to the Gnostic as the knowledge of yourself, as opposed to the knowledge of the Catholic Church. This is shown in signs such as checkerboard, where you've got black and white checkers. You've got the yin and yang side, where the two opposites blend into each other, and you've got a Kabbalistic tree of life, where you have two opposites and a central pillar of equilibrium. It's this idea that everything on the planet has two ends, two sides, up, down, black, white, in, out. Everything is a stretch between two, and that is a dualistic thought. And obviously, dualism is a dualistic thought because you have two gods, one idea, one evil at one end and good at the other end. This is in my book, The Mystery of the Cathar Country. Okay, so you have two different. You have the conventional Christian church and you have Gnostic Christianity. So in a conventional Christian church, you've got faith, where in Gnosticism, it's knowledge. So you've got faith versus knowledge. In the Christian church, it's creeds, which are set beliefs, versus myths in the Gnostic Christian church. You've got in the conventional Christian church, you've got uniformity of belief, and in the Gnostic church, you've got diversity of belief. In the conventional Christian church, you've got the organisation of the church, where in the Gnostic church, you've got the experience of the individual. In the Christian conventional church, you've got control of your thinking, where in the Gnostic church, you've got individuality of your thinking. So you can see how the two basic belief systems separate, I think, between control and freedom, basically. So, in the area of the Languedoc, tensions began to rise massively because just the very strength of the Cathar Church. In 1173, King Louis VIII got a letter from the Archbishop of Narbonne saying this: "The ship of St. Peter is too battered to float much longer. You have no strength to take. Have you no strength to take up the buckler of faith and the sword of justice in defence of the Lord our Church?" And Raymond V of Toulouse wrote to the Cistercian order, saying, "Few still believe in the creation or the resurrection. The sacraments are despised, and the religion of the two principles has everywhere established its hold." So on the 5th of March 1173, the Third Lateran Council, and the Pope here ordered that Henry de Morcy was sent to the Languedoc to try and bring this problem to some sort of conclusion. So it was in July 1181 that he went off with a small army to the stronghold in the Cathar Country, which was a small town of Lavar. This was known as the very seat of Satan and the capital of heresy. But when he got to the town, the two leading Cathars basically, for some strange unknown reason, just converted straight to Catholicism and went off to work with Bernard of Clairvaux at his abbey. But then in 1198, Pope Innocent III basically had enough. And he said to the priests and the monks of the Languedoc, "You are ignorant, illiterate, irredeemable, corrupt watchdogs that have lost their bark. Hirelings who have abandoned their flock to the wolves." Dominic Guzman, the founder of the Dominican order, said, "Preaching and entreaty have failed us, now you'll receive the stick." And this stick was to be known as the Albigensian Crusade. And that's for our next video. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and please do, as I say, please do subscribe. And if you want to make a donation in these difficult times, my PayPal account is underneath, weekly or monthly. So thank you very much. I will see you in the next video.